Deep in the cold black space, far from any star, a massive silver starship cut through the darkness like a sharp blade. The ship was shaped like a sleeping dragon, with long curved wings and golden spikes along its back. It was the royal vessel of the Dragon Empire, the proudest fleet in the known galaxy. Inside its grand halls, however, something was very wrong. A small silver hatchling lay curled inside a golden cradle made of pure stardust crystal. Her tiny body trembled. Her little wings shook with every sob. Her name was Princess Lyra, the only daughter of the great Dragon Queen, and she had not stopped crying for 3 full days. The royal nursemaids stood around her cradle with tired eyes. They had tried everything. They sang ancient dragon songs. They offered her the rarest meats from 12 different worlds. They wrapped her in silk softer than clouds. Nothing worked. The little princess just kept crying, her silver tears falling onto the golden blanket like tiny drops of rain. On the command deck, the ship's captain paced back and forth. He was an old dragon, his scales scarred from 100 battles. His name was Captain Doran, and he had faced enemy fleets, deadly storms, and even pirate raids without fear. But this tiny crying hatchling scared him more than any of those things. "How long has it been?" he asked the medical officer. 3 days, sir," the doctor replied. His voice was heavy. "She has not eaten. She drinks only a few drops of water. If this continues, she will not survive the trip home." Captain Doran closed his eyes. The Queen's orders had been clear. Bring the princess home safely or face her wrath. The royal vessel was still 6 days away from the dragon homeworld. 6 days. The hatchling would never last that long. The captain turned to his crew. His voice was sharp with worry. "Send out a ship-wide call. Every species, every crew member, every cook, every cleaner. Anyone who thinks they can help, bring them to the royal chamber. I do not care about ranks today. I do not care about laws. If anyone can save the princess, I will hear them." The order spread through the great ship within minutes. Voices echoed through every level, from the upper command halls to the lowest engine rooms. Every alien species aboard the vessel listened with surprise. The Glarn warriors with their stone-like skin, the Myric scholars with their long blue tentacles, the Verum healers with their soft glowing fingers. They had all tried to help before, but now the captain was asking for anyone, even the lowest workers. Down in the bottom level of the ship, in a small kitchen filled with steam and warm smells, a young human stood very still. His name was Theo. He was thin, with messy brown hair and a flour-stained apron. He held a wooden spoon in one hand, frozen in place as he listened to the announcement. Around him, the other kitchen workers laughed quietly. "They are calling everyone now," one of them said. "Even humans, I suppose." Theo did not answer. He looked down at the pot of warm soup he had been stirring for the engine workers. He thought about the crying hatchling far above him. He thought about how no one, not even the royal doctors, could calm her. And then he thought about his little sister back on Earth. Her name had been Myra. She was small and sweet, with curly black hair and a loud laugh. When she was very young, she used to cry for hours and hours when she was sick. Their mother always knew what to do. She would warm a simple bowl of food on the stove, soft grain with a little honey, and slowly feed it to her. Myra would stop crying. She would smile. She would laugh again. Theo had not thought about that bowl of food in a very long time. His sister was gone now, lost to a sickness no doctor could cure. His mother had passed 2 years later. He had taken this job on the dragon ship to escape Earth, to escape the memories, to escape everything. But now the memory came back to him so clearly that his eyes filled with tears. A simple bowl of warm food. Could it really help? He put down the spoon. He took off his dirty apron and put on a clean one. The other workers watched him with curious eyes. "What are you doing?" one of them asked. "I am going to help the princess," Theo said quietly. The kitchen went silent. Then someone laughed, a loud, mocking laugh. "You, a human. You think the great dragon queen will let a human near her royal daughter. You will be thrown out of the airlock for even trying." Theo did not answer. He simply walked out of the kitchen and started climbing the long metal stairs that led up to the royal deck. Each step felt heavier than the last. He passed cleaning droids and surprised crew members. He passed great stone hallways carved with dragon symbols. He passed guards in shining armor who stared at him with cold eyes. By the time he reached the top, his legs were shaking. Two huge dragon guards stood in front of the royal chamber doors. They looked down at him with disgust. "Go back to your kitchen, little human," one growled. But before they could push him away, the great doors opened. Captain Doran himself stepped out. His eyes were red from worry. He looked at the small human standing there, trembling but determined. "Let him in," the captain said. The guard stepped aside. Theo walked through the doors, and inside he heard the soft, weak cries of a tiny princess. Inside the royal chamber, the air was heavy with sadness. Golden lights floated in the air like tiny stars, and silk curtains hung from every wall. The room was beautiful, the most beautiful room Theo had ever seen. But none of that beauty mattered. In the center of the chamber, inside her crystal cradle, the little princess was still crying. Her cries were softer now, weaker. That worried Theo more than loud crying would have. He knew that sound. He had heard it before, long ago, from his own little sister in her last days. The royal nursemaids stood around the cradle with tired faces. When they saw the human walk in, their eyes filled with shock and anger. One of them, a tall green dragon with sharp eyes, stepped forward quickly. "Captain, this is too much," she hissed. "A human. In the royal chamber, the queen will have all our heads." Captain Doran lifted a heavy paw. "The queen will have our heads if the princess dies. Let him try. We have nothing left to lose." The nursemaid stepped back, but her eyes still burned with disapproval. Theo walked slowly toward the cradle. His heart was pounding so hard he thought everyone could hear it. He stopped a few steps away and looked down. The little princess was tiny, smaller than he had imagined. Her silver scales were dull from crying. Her little claws gripped the golden blanket. Her eyes were closed tight, and tears rolled down her small face one after another. Something in Theo's chest cracked open. He felt the old pain return, the pain he had buried deep inside for years. He thought of Myra. He thought of her small hands. He thought of her crying just like this. He knelt down beside the cradle, very slowly, so the guards would not panic. He spoke softly, almost in a whisper. "Hello, little one," he said. "I know you are tired, I know you are scared." The princess did not open her eyes, but her cries paused for just a tiny moment, as if she had heard something different. A voice she had never heard before. A gentle voice, not loud and proud like the dragons around her. Theo turned to the captain. "Sir, I would like permission to cook something for her, something from my world." The green nursemaid laughed sharply. "Human food for a royal hatchling, you must be joking." But Captain Doran nodded slowly. "Do what you can, quickly." Theo stood up and bowed. Then he hurried out of the chamber. The guards led him to the great royal kitchen, a place he had never even dreamed of seeing. It was huge, with shining silver counters and walls full of glowing alien spices. Dragon chefs in tall red hats stared at him as he walked in. "What is a human doing here?" one of them roared. "The captain sent me," Theo said. "I need simple things, plain grain, fresh milk, a little honey, a small pinch of warm spice." The dragon chefs laughed at him. They laughed loud and long. "Grain, milk, you want to feed the princess peasant food. This kitchen has the finest meats in the galaxy. We have fire-roasted star beasts. We have crystal fruit from the moon valleys. And you want grain." Theo did not argue. He walked past them and started searching the shelves himself. The chefs watched him with amused eyes, waiting for him to fail. But Theo had cooked in many strange places before. He knew how to find what he needed. He found a sack of soft white grain in the back. He found fresh milk from a moon cow in the cold storage. He found a small jar of golden honey, sweet and thick, and he found a tiny clay pot of warm spice, the kind his mother used to keep on her shelf. He worked quickly. He poured the milk into a small pot and placed it on the heating stone. He added the grain slowly, stirring with a wooden spoon. The dragon chef stopped laughing and started watching with curious eyes. The smell began to rise. It was a smell that no one in the royal kitchen had ever known. Warm, soft, sweet. The smell of home. The smell of mothers and morning light and quiet love. Even the angry green nursemaid, who had followed Theo to make sure he did not poison anyone, sniffed the air and looked surprised. "What is that?" she whispered. "It is just porridge," Theo said gently. "My mother used to make it for my sister." He stirred the pot slowly, watching the grain soften. He added a small pinch of warm spice. He drizzled a little honey on top. The mixture turned golden and creamy. He tasted a tiny bit on the back of his wooden spoon just to make sure it was perfect. It was. He poured the porridge into a small silver bowl. He added one more swirl of honey on top, like his mother always did. The honey made a little spiral, slow and beautiful. Theo lifted the bowl carefully. It was warm in his hands. He looked at the dragon chefs, who were now quiet, watching him with strange expressions on their faces. Some of them looked confused. Some of them looked almost sad, as if the smell had touched a memory deep inside them too. He carried the bowl through the royal halls. Each step was careful. Each breath was steady. The guards opened the chamber doors for him without a word. The princess was still crying inside, but her cries were so weak now they sounded like tiny breaths. Captain Doran looked up with desperate eyes. Theo walked to the cradle. He sat down on the floor beside it. He held the warm bowl close to his chest. And then he picked up a tiny silver spoon. The silver spoon felt small in Theo's hand. He looked at the tiny princess in the crystal cradle. Her little chest moved up and down with weak, broken breaths. Her crying had almost stopped, not because she was feeling better, but because she had no strength left. That scared Theo more than anything. He blew softly on the spoon to cool the porridge. He had done this 100 times for his little sister back home. He remembered her face, the way she used to scrunch up her nose when food was too hot. He pushed the memory away. He needed to focus now. "Princess," he whispered, "I made something for you. Will you try just a little bit?" The little dragon did not move. Her silver eyes stayed closed, but the warm, sweet smell from the bowl was rising slowly, filling the air around her cradle. It was a smell unlike anything in this royal ship. Soft, gentle, honest. Theo lifted the spoon. He held it very close to her tiny mouth but did not push. He waited. For a long moment, nothing happened. The green nursemaid stepped forward, ready to pull the human away. Captain Doran held up a paw to stop her. The whole room was silent. Even the floating golden lights seemed to stop moving. Then slowly the princess sniffed. Her tiny nose twitched. Her little nostrils flared. She had smelled the porridge. Her silver eyes opened just a crack. They were wet with tears, but they were curious now. She looked at the spoon. She looked at the man holding it. She looked at his soft, kind face. Theo smiled gently. "It is okay," he whispered. "Just a small taste." The princess opened her tiny mouth, just a little. Theo carefully placed the warm porridge inside. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then her silver eyes grew very, very wide. The warm, sweet honey touched her tongue. The soft, creamy grain melted in her mouth. The gentle warmth spread through her cold, tired little body. It was nothing like the rich royal food she had tasted before. It was not heavy. It was not bitter. It was warm and simple and full of something she could not name. It was love. The food was made with love. The princess swallowed. And then, for the first time in 3 days, she opened her mouth and asked for more. She did not speak with words. She just lifted her tiny head, opened her little jaws, and made a small soft sound. A hungry sound. A hopeful sound. Theo laughed quietly, his eyes wet. "Yes, princess, here is more." He gave her another spoonful, then another, then another. The little princess ate faster now, her tail starting to wag softly behind her. Her tiny claws gripped the edge of the cradle. Her wings, which had been folded sadly against her back, slowly began to open. The royal nursemaid stared in shock. The green one covered her mouth with a paw. Captain Doran took a heavy step closer, hardly believing what he was seeing. The princess kept eating. The bowl was already half empty. Some honey dripped down her tiny chin. Theo gently wiped it away with a cloth, just like his mother used to do for Myra. And then it happened. The princess let out a small sound, a tiny, bubbling sound that came from deep inside her chest. It was a sound no one in the royal court had ever heard from her before. It was a sound the captain had not heard from any baby dragon in many, many years. It was a laugh. A small, soft, happy laugh. The princess giggled. She giggled with porridge on her face and honey on her chin. She wiggled her tiny tail. She flapped her little wings. She laughed again, louder this time, as Theo fed her another spoonful. The whole room froze. The green nursemaid sank down onto her knees, tears streaming from her great eyes. Captain Doran turned his face away, his shoulders shaking. The royal doctor dropped his medical scanner. It clattered onto the floor, but no one even noticed. The princess was laughing. The princess was eating. The princess was going to live. Theo could feel his own tears now, hot and quiet on his cheeks. He kept feeding her, spoon after spoon, his hands steady even though his heart was breaking and healing at the same time. In this little princess's laugh, he could almost hear his own sister. He could almost hear Myra, laughing from somewhere far away, telling him it was all right. When the bowl was finally empty, the princess made a small sad sound. Theo smiled and brushed her tiny head softly with his finger. "I will make you more tomorrow," he whispered. "I promise." The little princess yawned. A big yawn for such a small dragon. Her silver eyes started to close. Her tiny body relaxed for the first time in days. She curled up in her golden blanket, her tail wrapping around herself like a comma. Her little chest moved up and down, slow and steady. She was sleeping. For the first time in 3 days, the royal hatchling was sleeping peacefully. Captain Doran walked slowly to where Theo was kneeling. He looked down at the human with eyes that were no longer cold. They were soft. They were grateful. They were almost ashamed. "Cook," the captain said quietly. His voice was rough. "I do not even know your name." "Theo, sir," the human said. "My name is Theo." The captain nodded slowly. He looked at the sleeping princess. He looked at the empty silver bowl. "Theo," he said, "the queen will want to meet you." "The queen?" Theo whispered. "Yes," Captain Doran said. "We reach the homeworld in 6 days, and when she sees what you have done, the galaxy will change." The next 6 days on the royal starship were unlike any days Theo had ever known. His small bed in the lower kitchen was gone. The crew had moved his things up to a guest chamber near the royal halls, a room 10 times bigger than anything he had ever slept in. The walls were carved with dragon symbols, and the bed was so soft it felt like sleeping on a cloud. But Theo did not sleep much. He was too busy cooking. Every morning, the little princess woke up, and the first thing she did was look around for him. The royal nursemaids had learned this quickly. They had stopped pushing him away. Now they came to his door each morning and asked politely if he would come to the royal chamber. The princess was changing. Her silver scales were shining again. Her tiny wings had grown stronger. Her eyes were bright with curiosity. She no longer cried. Now she babbled in tiny dragon sounds, watching everything around her with wonder. But she only wanted to eat one thing: warm porridge with honey. Theo had to be careful. He knew that a baby could not eat the same thing every day, so he started to change the recipe slowly. One day he added small bits of soft fruit. Another day he stirred in a little of the moon cow butter. He used different spices from his Earth memories, things his mother had kept in small jars on her kitchen wall. The princess loved every new version. She would squeal with joy each time Theo walked in with a fresh bowl. But something strange was happening on the ship. The dragon chefs in the royal kitchen had started watching Theo cook. At first they had laughed at him. Now they came to his cooking station every day. They watched how he stirred the grain. They watched how he poured the honey. They watched how he tasted everything before serving it. They asked quiet questions. They started taking notes on small scrolls. One night the head chef, a huge red dragon named Karim, walked up to Theo with a serious face. "Human," he said slowly, "I have been cooking for over 200 years. I have made meals for kings, for warlords, for the greatest dragons in our empire. But I have never made anything that brought joy like your simple food. Why is that?" Theo thought for a long moment. He stirred his pot quietly. Finally he answered. "Because royal food is made for the eyes," he said softly. "But earth food is made for the heart. My mother once told me that the best meals are not the ones with the most ingredients. They are the ones cooked with love. The food remembers who made it, and the one who eats it can taste that love, even if they do not know what they are tasting." Karim was silent for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. He walked back to his own station and started cooking again, but this time he worked with more care. He hummed a soft dragon song as he stirred. The other chefs noticed. Soon, they all started humming too. Captain Doran noticed it too. He came down one evening to see what was happening. He found his hardened dragon chefs laughing softly with a young human, sharing recipes, comparing spices. The captain stood at the door and watched for a long time. Then he walked away with a small smile. On the fourth day of the journey, something unexpected happened. A loud alarm sounded across the ship. Pirates. 3 small dark vessels had appeared from behind a moon, heading straight for the royal starship. They were after the princess, the most valuable hatchling in the galaxy. The crew rushed to battle stations. Theo was hurried into the royal chamber for safety, where the nursemaids gathered around the cradle. The little princess began to whimper. She could feel the fear in the air. Her wings trembled. The ship shook hard as the pirates fired their first shots. The lights flickered. The princess started to cry again, that tiny sad sound that broke Theo's heart. Without thinking, Theo grabbed a small clay bowl he had brought from the kitchen. It had a little leftover porridge in it. He sat down beside the cradle and held the bowl close. "It is all right, princess," he whispered. "Look, your favorite food is right here. Listen to my voice, do not be afraid." The princess looked up at him. Her crying slowed. The ship shook again, but Theo kept his voice steady and soft. He started humming a little song his mother used to sing to Myra. It was a simple song, just a few notes, but it filled the chamber with calm. The princess listened. She watched Theo's face. She listened to his soft humming. Slowly, her little body relaxed. She took a small bite of porridge from the spoon he held. She did not cry. She did not panic. She trusted him. Above them, on the command deck, Captain Doran fought the pirate ships with skill and fury. Within minutes, all 3 pirate vessels were destroyed. The royal starship was safe. When the battle ended, the captain came down to check on the princess. He found her curled up in Theo's lap, calmly eating the last of the porridge while the human softly hummed his old earth lullaby. The captain just stood there for a long time. He did not speak. He did not need to. That night the captain called his entire crew together. He announced that humans would no longer be treated as lesser workers on this ship. From now on, they would be respected as equals. Some of the older dragons grumbled, but no one argued. They had all seen the princess. They had all heard her laugh. The galaxy was about to change, and Theo had no idea how much. On the 6th day, the great dragon homeworld appeared in the starship windows like a giant golden jewel. The planet was huge, larger than any world Theo had ever seen, with vast oceans of glowing blue water and mountain ranges that touched the clouds. Floating cities hung in the sky, held up by ancient dragon magic. Light glittered everywhere. It was the most beautiful sight in the universe. But Theo could not enjoy it. His hands were shaking. He was about to meet the Queen of Dragons, the most powerful being in the galaxy, and he was just a small human cook from Earth. The little princess sat beside him in the royal landing shuttle, her tiny claws holding tightly onto his thumb. She had grown stronger over the last week. Her scales gleamed like polished silver. Her eyes were bright with joy. She kept making small happy sounds, looking up at Theo like he was her favorite person in the whole galaxy, which in many ways he now was. Captain Doran sat across from them. His old face was calm, but his eyes were watchful. "Theo," he said quietly, "when we land, do exactly as I tell you. Bow when the Queen approaches. Do not speak unless she speaks to you first, and whatever happens, stay calm." Theo nodded. He could not even find words. The shuttle landed softly on a massive golden platform. Outside, thousands of dragons had gathered to welcome their princess home. They lined the streets, the rooftops, the bridges of the floating city. Banners flew everywhere. Music played from huge stone horns. The whole planet was celebrating. But when the shuttle doors opened and the little princess stepped out, the music suddenly stopped. Because right behind her, holding her tiny paw, was a small human. A wave of shock rolled through the dragon crowd. Thousands of eyes stared. A human. In the royal procession, walking beside the princess herself. It was unheard of. Some dragons hissed in anger. Some looked confused. Some, the older ones, looked at the human with sharp eyes. The princess did not care. She held Theo's hand and walked forward, smiling at the crowd. At the far end of the golden platform, on a throne carved from a single mountain, sat the queen. She was enormous. Her body was covered in golden scales that shone like the sun. Her wings, folded behind her, were as wide as a great hall. Her eyes were two burning stars. The air around her hummed with raw power. Captain Doran led the small group forward. He bowed low. Theo bowed too, lower than he had ever bowed. His heart pounded. The queen stood. The platform shook softly. She walked forward, her eyes fixed on her daughter. The little princess broke away from Theo and ran into her mother's arms with a happy squeal. The queen lifted her daughter gently. She held her close. Her huge eyes filled with tears, real tears, the size of raindrops. The little princess laughed and pressed her tiny face against her mother's golden scales. For a long moment, the queen just held her child and cried softly. Every dragon in the city watched in silence. They had never seen the queen show such emotion in public before. Finally, the queen looked up. Her burning eyes turned to Captain Doran. "My captain," she said. Her voice was deep and beautiful, like distant thunder. "How is it that my daughter, who was dying when I last spoke to you, now laughs in my arms?" Captain Doran bowed his head. "Your Majesty, the credit is not mine. It belongs to another. May I present the one who saved your daughter's life?" He turned and gestured to Theo. The queen's golden eyes moved slowly. They settled on the small human. The crowd held its breath. Theo stepped forward. His legs felt like water. He bowed as low as he could. He waited. "You," the queen said. Her voice was soft, but it carried across the whole platform. "A human, you saved my daughter." "Your Majesty," Theo whispered. "I only cooked her a small bowl of food. It was nothing. I just remembered what my mother used to make for my sister back on Earth." The queen was silent for a long moment. She looked down at her daughter, who was now reaching her tiny paws toward Theo, trying to climb out of her mother's arms to get back to him. The princess made small, happy sounds, calling for her human friend. The queen watched this. Her eyes softened. She gently set her daughter down on the platform. The little princess ran straight to Theo and wrapped her tiny body around his leg. The whole crowd gasped. The Queen of Dragons stepped down from the platform. She walked slowly toward the small human. With every step, the ground trembled. She stopped right in front of him, her huge head lowered. And then, in front of every dragon in the city, she did something that had never been done before in the history of the Dragon Empire. She bowed. The Queen of Dragons bowed to a human cook. Her great golden head touched the ground. Her ancient body lowered itself in respect before a small man from Earth. The crowd stood in stunned silence. No one moved, no one breathed. "Theo of Earth," the Queen said softly, "you did what my entire empire could not. You saved the heart of my heart. From this day forward, your people are no longer strangers to us. They are family." She lifted her great head. Her burning eyes met his. "Stand human," she said. "Stand tall. The Dragon Empire owes you a debt that can never be paid." Theo could not speak. He just stood there with a tiny princess holding his leg and tears running down his face. A great feast was held that night in the royal palace. Thousands of dragons gathered in the grand hall, lit by floating stars and tall flame columns. Long tables stretched across the room. The queen sat at the head of the highest table, with her daughter on a small golden chair beside her. And beside the princess, on a chair just his size, sat Theo. He still could not believe any of this was real. The queen rose to her great feet and lifted a golden cup. The whole hall went silent. "My people," she said, her voice ringing through the great chamber, "tonight we celebrate the return of my daughter, but we also celebrate something greater. Tonight we welcome humanity into our circle. For too long we have looked down on their small world. For too long we have ignored their gentle hearts. Today that ends." The dragons in the hall raised their cups. Some did so eagerly, others slowly, but all of them raised them. The queen turned to Theo. "Human cook, I offer you any reward you wish. Name it and it shall be yours: gold, land, ships, a title, a planet of your own. Speak and the empire will honor your request." Theo stood up slowly. The whole hall watched him. Even the little princess looked up at him with curious silver eyes. He took a deep breath. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice was small but clear, "I do not want gold, I do not want land, I do not want a planet. I only want one thing. I want to keep cooking for the princess. I want to watch her grow. I want to make sure she never forgets how to laugh." The hall was silent. The queen stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed, a huge, deep, rumbling laugh that shook the palace, a laugh full of joy. "Granted," she said, smiling. "From this day on, you are the personal royal cook of Princess Lyra, and more than that, you shall be her companion, her teacher, her friend. You shall live in the royal palace as a member of our family." The little princess squealed with happiness. She climbed onto Theo's lap and wrapped her tiny wings around him. The whole hall erupted in cheers. But Theo had one more thing to say. "Your Majesty," he added quietly, "I have one small request. May I bring some of my people here, just a few, cooks, teachers, farmers, simple folk. There is much we can share with each other, not just food, but songs, stories, ways of caring for one another." The queen's eyes softened. "Yes," she said, "bring them, bring as many as you wish. Earth shall always have a home among the dragons." That single sentence changed history. Within months, ships began to travel between Earth and the dragon homeworld. Humans came in small groups at first, then more, then thousands. They brought their cooking pots, their old songs, their books and gardens. The dragons, in return, shared their magic, their knowledge of the stars, their ancient wisdom. The two species began to learn from each other. Word spread across the galaxy. Other alien races watched in shock. The mighty Dragon Empire, the most feared power in the universe, had opened its arms to small humans. Trade routes opened. Wars stopped. The Glarn warriors, the Myric scholars, even the cold Verum healers, all came to see what kind of magic had created this alliance. And the answer was always the same. A bowl of warm porridge, a small act of kindness, a human who remembered his mother's recipe. Years passed. The little princess grew quickly, as dragons do. By her 10th birthday she was the size of a small house. Her silver scales had turned bright like moonlight. Her wings could carry her across the floating city. She was strong, smart, and kind. But every morning, without fail, she still went to the royal kitchen. And every morning, without fail, Theo was there waiting for her with a bowl of warm porridge and honey. He had grown older, too. His brown hair now had streaks of gray. His hands were still steady, but slower. He had married a kind human woman who had come to the dragon world as a teacher. Together, they had 2 children who played in the royal gardens with the princess. One quiet morning, when the princess was now a young dragon, she sat at the kitchen table eating her porridge while Theo cleaned his pots. "Theo," she said softly, "I have a question." "Yes, princess." "Do you remember the first day you fed me, on the ship?" Theo smiled. He turned to look at her. "Every moment of it, princess, I will never forget." The young dragon was quiet for a moment. Her silver eyes were thoughtful. "My mother told me that I was very sick that day," she said. "She told me I almost died. She told me that no doctor and no healer could help me, but you did, with just a small bowl of food." Theo nodded gently. He did not speak. "Why?" the princess asked. "Why did your simple food work when nothing else did?" Theo walked over to her. He looked up into her great silver eyes, the same eyes that had once looked at him from a cradle. He thought for a long time before answering. "Because, princess," he said softly, "the greatest power in the galaxy is not fire. It is not magic. It is not even the strength of dragons. The greatest power is love. When love is poured into something simple like a bowl of warm food, it becomes the strongest thing in the universe. That is the secret. That is what saved you." The princess lowered her great head and rested it gently against his small chest. "Thank you, Theo," she whispered, "for everything." And the human cook just smiled and stirred his pot.